Hello, beautiful people, and thank you so much once again for joining us on this other edition of The Brief, dedicated to the review of striking headlines in the papers, a program where we always get to dig several layers beneath the major headlines as related by newspapers in the country. As tradition demands, we always dig on those major headlines that newspapers carry in the country, especially stories that are of human interest. And on today's edition of the program, the newspapers are bringing to us some disturbing news about the northwest region of the country, where penitentiary or northwest penitentiary boss has been killed reportedly by Ambazonia fighters in Bui division of the northwest region of the country. We shall equally tell you about the deal sealed yesterday between Fecafoot and the Ministry of Secondary Education when it comes to supporting football within the secondary school milieu. And Bomotonguina Gwladys is always here as usual. Let's find out what she gathered for us today in the French language newspapers. Bonjour Gwladys.
Bonjour Lasha, bonjour à vous et merci de nous retrouver pour Debrief, votre émission bilingue de revue de presse sur MyMedia Prime Télévision. Effectivement, nous allons débuter aujourd'hui avec le journal Le Jour qui nous parle de cet événement triste, cet événement où des gardiens de prison ont été tués dans un attentat dans le nord-ouest et le sud-ouest. Les détails à ce sujet sont en page 3 du journal Le Jour lâché pour ce matin. Toujours dans le même journal, à sa page 3, le journal nous révèle, nous parle de la succession à la chefferie de Bangou. Le Premier ministre désavoue donc le ministre de l'administration territoriale Paul Atangadi. En effet, des pendules sont donc remises à zéro. Une commission est chargée de trouver une solution raisonnable et consensuelle au conflit successoral qui mine cette chefferie des hauts plateaux depuis 4 ans. Les détails sont donc en page 3 de ce journal Le Jour. En page 5, le journal nous parle ici du décès du journaliste éditeur en chef à la CRTV, Vincent de Paul Tangana, qui est donc décédé hier. Mesdames, Messieurs, nous continuons ce matin avec le journal Émergence qui nous parle, lui, à sa page 4 et 5 de la prison centrale de Kondengui à Yaoundé. Les prisonniers politiques se saisissent donc de Laurent Esso en prison. Nous restons toujours dans le même journal Émergence. À sa page 6, il nous révèle que le Cameroun exporte plus de 57 000 tonnes de bananes annuellement. En question d'Internet au Cameroun, le taux de pénétration stagne donc. Les détails sont en page 7 de ce journal. Mesdames, Messieurs, nous clôturons ce matin avec le journal La Nouvelle Expression qui nous parle, lui, en grand titre, du décès du rédacteur en chef de la CRTV Radio. En effet, ce dernier serait décédé hier. Les détails sont en page 3 de ce journal La Nouvelle Expression. En page 7, le journal nous parle de la crise dans le nord-ouest et le sud-ouest, démobilisation et réintégration des populations. C'est du moins ce qu'a intitulé le journal La Nouvelle Expression pour ce matin. À sa page 13, le journal nous révèle que des prêtres de l'Église catholique sont pères de famille. Nous arrêtons sur cette information et place à la découverte de ce titre en langue anglaise avec toi, Lasha.
Merci, Bomotonguina Gwladys. Thank you so much, Gwladys, for that piece of information. We shall come back to it in a subsequent or in the minutes ahead when we shall be analyzing or digging several layers beneath some of those headlines that you've just read to televiewers. Let's kickstart this morning with the Post newspaper. The Post newspaper is focusing on what the MPs have said at the closing of this year March session of Parliament that was in Yaoundé. MPs oppose price hikes, task government to take concrete measures. Members of Parliament, MPs through the Speaker of the Lower House of Parliament, Honorable Kavayege Djibri, have called on the call on government to take concrete action regarding the price hikes in the country. This was during at the closing ceremony of the March session of Parliament dedicated to the election of the Bureau and other positions in Parliament. The call was made, like I earlier mentioned, on April 9 in Yaoundé during the closing ceremony of the first ordinary session of the 10th legislative year. The first ordinary session of Parliament, which is usually holding in March every year, was dedicated to the election of officials of the House of Parliament. And speaking during the solemn closing ceremony, Honorable Kavayege Jibri blamed the rising prices in markets to the health crisis, COVID-19 pandemic, and the ongoing Russian-Ukraine war. More details in this edition of the Post newspaper. The Post newspaper is also telling us that next day Cameroon finally back on its feet and the end of conflict between shareholders. Multi-millionaire or multi-billionaire, Cameroonian multi-billionaire, who is one of the main shareholders in Vietel Cameroon, has finally made peace with his Vietnamese partners, as we are reading in the Post newspaper. Let's talk about cholera outbreak in the country that has killed 6 prisoners at the New Bay Central Prison in Douala. CRM activists amongst the 6 New Bay prisoners killed by cholera, writes the Post newspaper. And at least according to the Post newspaper, 6 inmates have died so far, and they have died at the New Bay Central Prison in Douala since the outbreak of the cholera epidemic in the country sometimes this year. And the Human Rights Watch has confirmed the death of the 6 inmates, and one of the 6 inmates, CRM activists, age 30, was amongst the people who perished or who died as a result of the outbreak of the cholera in New Bay Central Prison. Let's talk about this sad incident which happened in Bui Division of the Northwest region. That was yesterday, where separatist fighters reportedly ambushed and killed Northwest Penitentiary delegate and 3 others. They were returning on mission from Bui Division of the Northwest region when their car or their convoy was ambushed, and they were killed by the said separatist fighters, according to the Post newspaper. On to municipal updates. Municipal updates is interested in the killing of those individuals yesterday in the Northwest region of the country. We shall come back on that story in municipal updates newspaper. On to the Eagle's Eye. The Eagle's Eye this morning is revisiting the just ended March session of Parliament in Yaoundé National Assembly. Writes the Eagle's Eye, Kavayege Jibri, old wine that still tastes good. The paper continued to say the Speaker of the lower house of Parliament, talking about Honorable Kavayege Jibri, who was elected for the 30th time to head the National Assembly, once again carried out his activities with tact and dexterity throughout the March session of Parliament. And we are told by the paper that he was the first to arrive in all chairman conferences and the plenary sittings, and chair the deliberations from start to finish through the March session of Parliament. He also gave directives for the operations of parliamentary networks under the leadership or distinguished leadership of the Right Honourable Speaker Kavayege Jibri. MPs scrutinized and adopted 8 bills during the just ended March session of Parliament for the 10th legislative year. More details in this edition of the Eagle's Eye newspaper. And we end with the Voice Weekender, or the Voice newspaper. The Voice Weekender this morning is interested in the murder of Northwest Penitentiary delegate. He was killed alongside 3 others in Bui Division by suspected separatist fighter. And the paper is also talking about Nextel on course to rebrand as partners, finally regroup and made peace. As you can see on your screen, Baba Dampolo is making peace with his Vietnamese partners, as being relayed by the Voice newspaper. Thank you for watching, televiewers of My Media Prime. We are back to continue with our discussions, and this morning we are receiving a human rights defender, Amadou Tarnteh, who is just coming when situations are really getting out of hand in the Northwest and Southwest regions. Amadou, welcome once again.
Good morning once again, sir, and thank you once more for giving me this opportunity to be here. It's always a pleasure for me to be a guest on your program. Happy midweek to telespectators of my Media Prime Television.
How did Nouveau Conscience
African
receive...
Conscience.
Oh, Conscience Africaine.
Yes.
The NGO you work for. How did they receive the news of that gross human rights violation and war crime or crime against humanity?
Okay, permit me first of all start here by saying that what happened yesterday is no longer any news to us, because I'll say that...
So you guys were waiting?
There's one
every day you
yes, that's
wait for...
That's what I'm trying to explain, because one of my friends, a journalist once told me that news is something that is new, something that is new. So I don't know if it's true or false, but I believe that is a good statement. So we believe that something like what happened yesterday is something that is expected at any time. That's why we of Conscience Africaine always says that if insofar as the crisis is not resolved with immediate effects, things will continue to get worse in the days ahead. That notwithstanding, we of Conscience Africaine has condemned the brutal assassination of the divisional delegate of penitentiary administration and his collaborators, while calling on the government and the warring parties do everything possible to make sure that a peaceful way out, that is, there is an immediate and permanent ceasefire to give way for negotiation or dialogue for us to have an end to this crisis. And we have equally continuously remind the government that the military option that the government took to resolve this problem has failed drastically, and that there is need for government to address the situation.
What have civilians got, or prison guards got to do with war or what is happening on the ground? Is it not wrong target?
Well, permit me make it very clear that because some people have received questions from a lot of people with regard to that same issue. I will say here that it is not really clear whether the penitentiary administration is a combatant or a non-combatant, because the international covenant, the United Nations Convention on the international humanitarian laws says that combatants, they say, are those that are actively involved in hostility, or armed forces that are involved in hostility. In this case, we don't know whether the penitentiary, first of all, is an member of the armed forces or not, because those that are not members of the armed forces in the other case,
they carry guns. They carry guns
and they move around with guns. So I don't, but though they carry guns and move around with guns, it's not clear whether, because with regard to issues like this,
are the guns meant for fighting war or protecting criminals or prisoners from escaping?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that there is a problem, because that notwithstanding, there are other groups that are considered unprivileged combatants. Those are involved in the war, but they are not legitimate, regarded legitimately as combatants. So it's not really clear. We cannot really say whether these
but civil administrators like the DOs, you know, even the secretaries, the DOs, those who go to ENAM,
yes,
they are trained. They also receive military training. That should they be? Yes, they also have guns. They
can
carry guns.
Just the fact that they receive military training does not make them combatants. That's why I'm saying that they say combatants are those that are directly involved in hostility. Is the DO involved in hostility? And there's another thing they often say that non-combatants, they are equally, sometimes there are some group of people that do not have special status. Those that are considered as spies, what they will commonly call blacklist mercenaries or saboteurs in the international convention. In these international laws or world laws that has to do with war, they have not clearly stated the place of this.
So why should they be targeted? Are you saying that those who are doing what they are doing, they don't know that these people are non-combatant?
Well, sometimes they know that they are non-combatants, but for them to show that they are winning the war, according to them, they decide to target people as social as to tell the war that to whip their opponents and tell them that they are winning the war. And there is equally something I wanted to make it very clear here, that this issue of like I was saying, combatant and non-combatant, we have the issue of the Fulani arms militia, like what has been happening recently in Ndonga Mantum division, where Fulani headsmen, Fulani arms militia that are believed to be armed by the government, according to our sources, have been going around killing people. But the government has remained silent with that. And we wanted the government to clearly tell Cameroonians or the national and international community whether this armed militia, to clearly tell us the status of this armed militia, whether they are armed, they are directly considered as armed men directly involved in hostilities, so that the separatist fighters should equally know whether this armed militia to be their target or not. Because the government need to clearly tell us the status of those armed militia who are causing a lot of atrocities especially in subdivision and of Ndonga Mantum, and equally in Du subdivision.
Okay.
Ok, merci beaucoup. Le Premier ministre désavoue le MINAT en ce qui concerne la succession à la chefferie de Bango. Il a envoyé une autre commission pour régler ce problème, indépendamment du fait que Bomotonguina avait déjà nommé un chef.
Well, okay, let me first clarify here. Because last time when you were telling me about this shape, I told you that the first class chiefs are this is the prime minister that has the power to
thank you for that
clarify them.
information.
With regard to that, it's the prime minister that has that power to do that. But you know that very well that even within our government here, the prime minister that notwithstanding that he is the boss of Atanganji. Sometimes Atanganji is on most of his acting. We know very well that he has been acting ultra-virus, so acting out of his own jurisdiction.
So are you saying that what the prime minister has taken as decision now will be counteracted by Minister Paul Atanganji?
No, we
already have several people have been wounded and one person was reported dead.
That one is the consequence of what Atanganji did. He knows very well that the prime minister that has the power to that.
But we have the same case here in Douala. Why is Minister Paul Atanganji doing what he's doing? Are you giving him credits for doing what he's doing?
No, it's okay. That's why I said that Mr. Paul Atanganji, in most of his acting, has been acting ultra-virus. That's ultra-virus. That's acting beyond his power. So this has causing a lot of problem within Cameroon. So I've seen several instances where some decisions that are supposed to be taken by, like this particular case, that are supposed to be taken by different ministers, are taken by the minister of territorial administration. No, those are some of the ministers, zealous ministers that think that they are above the country,
but the issue of chieftaincy is under his ministerial department, right?
Yeah, it's under his ministerial department, but there's a law respecting that says that the prime minister that looks at the cases of the first class chiefs.
Ok.
Ok, merci beaucoup. Décès d'un confrère à la CRTV, le rédacteur en chef CRTV Radio hier. Malheureux incident.
Well, it's really a sad situation where I saw media unclear circumstances. We don't know what is happening because for some time now we have been recording issues as such here in Cameroon. We know we are living in a very tight situation where insecurity has become a very big problem. Though we cannot really say whether he was assassinated or not.
Unconfirmed sources and what we are reading from other newspapers are saying that his private part was removed. We still to independently verify that information. He was killed by a woman and his private part removed.
So that's what I saw on some social media platforms. So as I was saying, it's not really clear what happened. But even though it's not strange, I really say, because you have witnessed a lot of
why
cases.
Why would a journalist like that not have a protection or security? A journalist of that class and that media working for the state corporation.
No, do you think if the government has to provide security for the people, we could provide security up to that level? I don't think so. I don't think, with my little knowledge to that, if I don't think the government, our government has security that they can provide up to that to the level of the journalists and all the like.
Okay.
Yes, Amadou Tarnteh, the Eagle's Eye this morning is telling us, making us to understand that MPs have once again backed like dogs through the Speaker of Lower House of Parliament, Honorable Kavayege, but they cannot bite. They are saying that the price hike, they are complaining about the price hike of basic food items in the market, but they cannot come out with law. Many people are seeing them as just backing like a toothless bulldog backing without actually carrying out the reforms or the laws, making the laws that has to do with, stabilizing the prices that we have in the markets.
Well, the most important thing here, what I'm happy here, is that these MPs have woken up from their slumber. If they too can reason or understand what the pains that
just 30 of them, and 30 of them who spoke through Kavayege, because the session actually ran with 30 MPs out of 180.
No, it's really good. That's what we're expecting of these MPs, because when they see anything at the level of National Assembly that is not going on, it's true that they might be power, whatever they say, they might not have effect, but it's very important to call attention of the government and the Speaker of National Assembly that this thing is not good and this one is not good, because silence kills more than the worst epidemic we can think of.
Ok,
merci beaucoup. Le journal La Nouvelle Expression nous révèle ce matin que plusieurs prêtres sont pères de famille. Vous êtes dans les droits des hommes, mais ils ont le droit aussi d'avoir des familles en même temps.
It's true. They have to right to they have canon laws that's governing the priests.
But why should they be having families, keeping children off the eyes of the public?
No, that one is the problem between them and their hierarchy. That's the Pope, because it is very clear on their canon laws that they don't have to have children and they go about having the children. But that one is only within. But those are laws that are only punishable. Only punishable by conscience.
Those are revelations and investigations carried out by newspapers and media men, revealing that many of them who are exercising their duties as priests or pastors have families.
This one is still coming on to
what example are they showing to the society? Let's forget about the canon laws or whatever stuff. What kind of example are they showing those who are having families or keeping, you know, families off the public eye when it is clear that they are not supposed to marry or get married?
Well, it is clear that they are not supposed to marry, and most of them still go about having children. That one is just a high sign of hypocrisy, because when if you take oath to do something, you should make sure that you respect what you are taking oath to do. Because when you take oath to maybe as a priest, that you are taking oath as a priest, and you have to follow all the laws that follow suit, and at the end you end up doing the contrary. I mean that you are not a good priest. Because if they have decided to choose to sacrifice their life for the service of humanity without having children and all, despite the fact that another person suffered to see them come into this world, then that one is their own problem. And it equally goes a long way to this issue of there was a long debate, the issue of the religion, tradition, and all the rest. Because sometimes we're tempted to say that those that claim to be following religions and all this telling us that this God is that God, this one is that, like that way, they are sometimes hypocrites.
Yes, Amadou, Tarnteh, 6 inmates have died so far at the New Bed prison, the second largest, you know, reformation or whatever facility in the country. And one of such persons who died is the CRM activist, and Human Rights Watch is confirming that. What is happening in our prison, that hygiene and sanitation is not longer respected?
It's really a regrettable situation, because what I've come to understand is that the first thing we should know here is that there are international laws like the International Covenant on Civil and on civil and political, as well as economic, social, and cultural rights, and many other laws as well that protect civil prisoners, while even when prisoners in prisons. But it seems as if our government has just think that once someone is sent to prison, the person lost all his rights. Because when you see somebody there and in prison, they're supposed to make sure that the prison condition, the hygienic condition is respected, and make sure that all those who are all their inmates are taken care of at any time, to make sure if at any time they see that someone is not feeling fine, someone is suffering from malaise, anything, do everything possible to make sure that the person is dispatched for the hospital, for the person to undergo a proper treatment. And so if the government continuously allow these people to die in prison, it's really regrettable for our government. The government is giving this country a very bad image.
Okay, very bad image. Thank you, Amadou Tarnteh, for coming. Not only the government, those who have been given responsibility by President Pobia are not also doing their own job.
Yeah, so that's of course as a government. So they are members of the government as well.
Okay, thank you for coming. Who you guys are investigating on what actually happened in the Bui division to submit your report as usual.
Yes, we are.
I'll call on the government to do something in ensuring that
peace return to this region.
Peace return to these regions, and also Cameroon. Thank you to televiewers of My Media Prime TV for watching this other edition of the program, which was produced for us by Christain, Tebong. We were Gwladys, Bomotonguina, and myself, Lasha. Tomorrow is another day. Bye-bye.